you to rest.
Rest nali mudde bulungi nga ninakwenge ndi mukama ku mata. This rest was just empty hands. If I was resting at my Indian junk, that's different.
Streaming has started.
Streaming has started. Well, 22 minutes past 8 o'clock in the United Kingdom. That will be 22 minutes past 3 o'clock in Boston. Welcome to Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, live on 75 W Radio, live on Ummah, connected on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. Tonight's a very, very important program. I mean, it's, well, always, our programs are always all important. But I think if there was anything like importanter, then probably this is one. Over time and over the years, we have lost our power as parents, as husbands, as wives, as children. And it is the result of something that we have done ourselves. Our own hands have contributed to this historical abuse done to children by parents, by relatives, by teachers, by the clergy in the churches, has all left a lasting imprint on many people's lives. As a result, governments came in to try to redress this particular situation that took generations and destroyed generations. There are people who suffered in their childhood, in their youth, a suffering that has left a lasting mark on how they relate to other people, on how they live their lives. And definitely this needed to be addressed. Later governments, therefore, have come in to try to address this by introducing very stringent rules and laws that have made it almost impossible in some instances to discipline our own children. The traditional or old adage of spare the rod and spoil the child almost pointed to the roughness, the toughness, the tightness with which parents treated their children. But of course, now over time, we have become slaves to our own children, unable to administer discipline in homes because children have become untouchable. In our own homes, the relationship between husband and wife, father and mother, has deteriorated over time. Again, partly due to the abuse, the historical abuse that women have suffered at the hands of ignorant men or abusive men. And this is just a very small proportion of men in comparison to other many men out there. But of course, the fact that you have case after case after case pushed governments now to try to address this situation by coming up with laws and regulations that would help to safeguard women or wives inside their homes. Unfortunately, some of these meant that the husbands needed to be thrown out of homes, almost as a first point of reference before they even make any other rules or taking any other measures that would help to address the situation in the homes. Of course, now that meant that most women, many women, started running quickly to the law before they could even find solutions inside the homes. From an Islamic perspective, Allah talks about conflict in homes, which is a natural dispensation. It's a natural phenomenon. Where you have people, there will be conflict. But how people resolve these conflicts is what really counts. Allah provided 3 steps to conflict resolution in homes between husband and wife. That if you have a misunderstanding between husband and wife, then the two of you should sit and try to resolve the issues at hand. If that fails, then we move to step 2, and Allah refers to it as فَبْعَثْ حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ. Get a witness, get a representative from the woman's side and a representative or witness from the man's side. Sit through this and try to resolve. This still is an internal issue, that while you have involved people within, but it is hakaman, it is a trusted person on your part, on the man's part, on the woman's part, and you try to sit through this. Again, that is avoiding the the public display of disaffection to each other. Then comes last step. In case really it is clear there are irreconcilable differences between the couples, Islam provides a way out. Unlike Christianity, for example, where it is we shall be, together till death doth us part, Islam will only allow death doth us part if situations are okay. If there is abuse, if there is a case of abuse, then definitely doesn't work. Narongo, message received. So in other words, Islam now provides the last solution where now an imam has to be invited, and at that level, matters have escalated. And in so doing, when matters have escalated and the imam is brought in, you have decided to go your separate ways because the circumstances there are irreconcilable differences. It is clear the two of you cannot stay together anymore. And at that point, even at that point, Islam still brings in a condition that actually I've suddenly realized that in all my life, I have never witnessed an Islamic divorce. Because many people, when they get misunderstandings, omukyala waabwe ng'anobera waabwe baleeta amata okujja okunkima, baleeta omwenge okujja okunkima for the non-Muslims, as if, according to Baganda, baleeta mata in the first instance. So when the imam comes in now, separation comes in. But then once that has been declared and officially now the process begins, in case of abuse, that is about the only time that then the woman now would have to move out of her house, out of her marital house, to move to a safer location until this period of, is dealt with, either investigations are carried out or whatever. If it is not a domestic issue, if it's not violence related, and it has been a misunderstanding that has escalated, yes, but still not violent, this woman is prescribed by Islam, by the Sharia, to stay inside the house, continue living her life as she lived it, with the exception of one thing, which is having conjugal relations with the husband. But for 3 months, which is your waiting period, if you're going to sit down, oturao n'omwami, bw'oyitawo ne weesiba ettawulo nga bwe wagyesibako ne weesuuba n'ogenda eri mu kinaabiro n'onaaba n'okomawo. For 3 months, the husband is instructed to provide you everything that they have provided you, with the exception of the conjugal relations, because once you touch in the line of the conjugal relations, that breaks the divorce. Immediately, the divorce becomes impotent, becomes inactive, or new relationship becomes activated the moment you touch. Allah is trying to provide all these conducive environments that would allow you. Maybe you had a moment of anger that runs out and then you come back to this. But that is going so deep, but I'm trying to sort of show why family is at the heart of everything, that religion can stand on. Without family, Shaitan thrives a lot on families having disagreements or getting, breakups. Shaitan, this is the best moment, because once you break up a family, you allow a situation that now allows, allows anything else, everything else to be able to happen unhindered, because now you have removed the barrier that was there, which was family as we know it. But now, because of the historical abuse that we have spoken about, again, because of the failure now, it looks like love has dwindled in our times. People now rush to the law so quickly before finding internal solutions, in-house solutions to try to resolve issues. Tonight, I would like us now to fight back. It's been nearly 3 decades in which many homes have been wrecked. Many families realize at the detriment that, for example, once social services becomes involved, then you have a situation. You are on file, which means you are going to become a person of interest in terms of contacts of any situation. Chances are, sometimes you even lose the children because they are taken away from you. Maybe in the line, with the supposition that you have caused abuse, especially if you think about the corporal punishment, that some parents would instill on their children or apply to their children. Of course, now with the times, children have become much more blunt. They know or they hear about the law. They go to the schools and these communications are made. Even the simplest of touches might actually lead to a problem. So tonight I would like you, my friends, to try and delve into how do we take back. This is our time to fight back. Twagala kutaasa amaka gaffe. Tukoze tutya okuzza amaka gaffe? Are we able? Is it possible? Because once a woman has made up her mind, this man is mean, tavaako kantu mukodo mukopi. Is it possible for this man to wake up one time? Maybe he has had a dream of change, that now he starts becoming the good man that, you first met the first time, you were dating, or the first time you fell for each other. Is it possible that this person now could transform themselves and start becoming a happy wallet? If they did, would a woman be willing now to go back to her traditional role, which would have been to be the wife to this new caring husband? Is it possible that between the two of you, husband and wife, you can sit down and just make sure the interests of the children now come in first? Your love is important. It is what is holding everything together. And through that, you decide, we are going to sit as parents now and try to come up with a common position. Instead of providing contradictory positions before children, and children can see through this. This is a very long and lengthy monologue, but I wanted to lay the foundation of where we have found ourselves due to the circumstances to an extent that we have created. Allah in the Quran says, "Ba'da a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim." Allah does not change a situation that He has brought unto a people until those people change their own situation. So it starts with you when you sit down and you make a resolution, you make a resolve to try and say, we are going to live our lives the best way that we can. And it starts with how we relate with each other. Then we shall look after the children, because through our children, our own reflection of how our family is comes to the fore. So tonight I would like us to see, are you one of those people who had situations probably shaking, and you decided, the two of you, to sort of make amends and make sure you could change this situation? It will be good, because then probably we can learn. Remember, this program is about you. It's for you. It's about you. It's your experiences that really, count. We do not come here, ukweyo gerako, but we come here to share experiences which help. Because quite often, how many times have you had thinking that you're in a very difficult situation until someone talks about it in almost a similar manner, but then having overcome it? For you to get a solution, it might not be exactly that solution, but it will provide you a starting point to which you can provide your own custom-made solution to your particular problem. This is what Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayira, does. And we are live on 75 W Radio, live on Ummah Connected, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Zoom. And tonight, I open the mic up to you, starting with Jadane, because when I flagged this message, lo and behold, immediately Jadane gets back to me and says, I can't stop laughing. This is exactly where I was going to go to call a friend to talk to them about this very topic. So I think the more the conversations we have, the more relational we suddenly become, especially when it comes to the things that matter to us. Jadane, welcome to the conversation, and we are opening, how do we reclaim? What have we lost? Actually, let's probably start with where we went wrong. How did we find ourselves there before we can actually reclaim what we lost? How did we lose it?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Very interesting topic as usual. And when I saw it, I thought, oh, this is exactly what I was going to talk about with my workplace. Mm-hmm. But let's put it in context. You've given the religious way of resolving issues, right from the time when the issues develop up to when they are resolved, either on the marital bed or people separate. Now, I don't have that experience, and I don't have the work experience to explain that, but I'll explain how the government came in and what processes the government do to protect the children, because you talked about children at length. Now, the law that governs the care of children is an act which is very recent, 1989 Children's Act, where the welfare of the child is paramount, and the child being vulnerable human being, they are given the uttermost and frontal focus. So any child from the age of 0 to 18 is covered under that law. So if there's an issue in the home, the social workers will come in. But social workers don't come in just on the whim. They come in from referrals. People gossip about things happening in the neighborhood. The child themselves might talk. If the child doesn't talk and they've got scars or slap marks on their body, referrals are made to social workers, and then they'll follow the law. They don't come and remove the child. They'll come and try and address the situation within the home. What is the problem? What is causing this abuse on the child? Is it poverty? Is it the father, or is it alcohol or substance abuse? They try and address it at that point. And then they move to the next step, where they have what they call care meetings, and then they move to a further step where they start with the proceedings in court, and then the court decides whether the child should be removed. Now, in all these instances, if the child is in danger of being abused, then the child is removed to a temporary area for their own safety, to protect that child. So that law is there to protect the child and the parents as well, because you can imagine a father who is high on substances or who is high on anger because of stress. He comes and turns all his anger on the child. He could easily kill the child and end up with a manslaughter charge or a murder charge. So that law is there to protect initially the child, and then the parents. So that is as far as the law comes in. It's not arbitrary. It's there for the protection of children and the protection of the parents. But how did we come to this point? And I'm going by my talk to my colleagues at work was based on mental health that is related to this topic. So how did we, especially people in the diaspora, we Africans, Asians, South Americans, who come to the diaspora, the Western world, how did we get to a point where we abuse our women physically, we abuse our children, when back in our homes, such things happen, but they are not to the extent that they happen here? So when I work with people who come through our service for treatment, and there's many reasons which trigger the kind of abuse that we see in we read in the public, in the papers, the abuse we see on TV. There's reasons which make people turn and become violent to their children, to their wives. And most important is the reversal of roles and the reassignment of roles between men and women. Now, in my culture and in most of your cultures, the man is the head of the family. He makes those decisions. He provides for the family. He disciplines the child, and I mean the children and the women. He portrays a good image about his family to begin with, and then about his clan and then his tribe. So the man is the lead. But when you come to the Western world, that changes suddenly. The wife is given or is assigned roles as the carer of the home, especially if you come into the benefit system. Most times the benefits are assigned or are given to the mother, and the mother is the one who decides how that money is used. Now, you can imagine from becoming a provider to becoming somebody who is almost looked after, from becoming somebody who decides on the money, on the finances, to somebody who suddenly has to make do with whatever comes to him. And if there's a small disagreement, the person who is made to leave the house is the man, irrespective of who is at fault. So that change of role, that reversal of the traditional role, is what is triggering all this abuse to women, to children. So if we don't understand that change of roles, if we don't accept it, it becomes very difficult to solve the problem, because we all have our egos. We came with our egos from from back in Africa or South Africa or Asian countries. The men come with the ego, and out there it's a man's world. They don't oppress, but they lead. They give leadership to the family, and touching on the man's ego quickly touches on that raw nerve of, now my power has been removed, my power has been diminished, and it quickly escalates into anger.
Now, when you speak to women, Jaden, when you speak to women, you will realize that many of them, in fact, in many sessions that we sit in, we were recently at the UMC sports event, annual sports event in Manchester, ended up, with about 5, 6 women, all raising concerns and worry about asking the question, what has happened to men? Men have become so lazy. Men have become, like so over-reliant that they couldn't even explain to themselves what has happened. So could it be that men have led themselves down this path that has disempowered them, that they have contributed to this in this particular way?
I think it's in my view, it's the system that has disempowered the men. Because when you go into a home, for example, where there's a problem with a child, the first point of call is to speak with the mother. And the father is there in his mind and his heart. He's the head of the family. He's supposed to welcome you into his palace, but you have come in and you're talking to the wife. Not that the role of the wife or the mother is diminished, but it's that protocol which we have been brought up with. You've broken that protocol. You can imagine if you are addressing a public rally in Uganda or Kenya and so on, and the president is always mentioned at a certain level. You welcome the chief and so on and so on, and then finally the person who is at the top, you give them that due respect. So, but as a professional, you go in and you want to speak to the carer of the child, or the person that appears to be vulnerable, which in most cases is the wife. So we're looking to speak to the victim initially, when actually the victim could be the perpetrator of the problem. So that diminishing of removal of the power from the man is what quickly triggers or brings the anger. The two kind of move.
Jaden, well, I'll just raise this point with you, and then I would like to bring Safina while you are still there, because I think she's just brought this point where she says some men are just a let down. They are happy to stay home playing video games. while asking women for money to go to see their friends and their like. So if you take it just by that, that's men already beginning to slide down that route. But let me bring in Safina into the conversation. Stay on there. I'd like to just, Safina, please come in here because, and this is one of those conversations where sometimes okuyomba mu Luzungu tibiwoma. Please feel free Luganda, because then it just brings out the, some critical element in this. Safina, you welcome to the conversation. We are talking about, what we have lost and how we can try to reclaim it. Are you in a position to have your camera on, or you're not?
I'm not.
Okay, all right.
I'm in my chilling zone too.
All right. Okay. Understood. Now, well, Jaden has laid out a situation that has led, let's just start with let's just interrogate this very last point because I wanted to finish with Jaden and then let him go. But there was this specific point that he brought in that I wanted to ask to sort of interrogate. A situation has happened at home, either relating to the child, and then social services or even the police has come in, and the first person that they get to contact is the wife and not the husband. And in the husband's presence, you come into the home, you ask to see the care of the child, it's the mother, and the father is there almost forced to listen in without having to, have a say in this. How does that play out for you? Do you think that's right?
I've seen this as a teacher, red-handed, and it comes from the fact that maybe, because I'll talk from the teacher's perspective. You call home over a child's misbehavior in school or in class. And then when you talk to the dad, you don't feel like he's supportive. But then when you talk to the mom, you feel the mom is more concerned. She wants to come and see you. She wants to get to the bottom of the issue. So if you contact the dad 1 or 2 times and you don't get a positive response, from then on, you're like, that is a no good dad. So the next time the kid has issues, you better call the mom. In fact, sometimes as a teacher, the kid tells you, please, don't call my mom, call my dad. That already shows you something. It means the dad is easy and the kid is more afraid of the mom. So that makes you feel that wherever there's issues, I should call the mom and not the dad. In fact, the mom comes to school and throws tantrums. I didn't bring you up to be like this. So you see that she's taking action. Yet the dad just shakes the head. And then the dad might ask, what did you do for him to react like that? Like it's your fault as the teacher. So from then on,
yes, yeah,
you'd rather call the mom.
Jaden, you've had Safina's point there. And as a social worker, when do you determine now who you are going to be talking to? Because you've gone in, there's been a situation, and you just choose to go to the wife straight away. What informs your decision? Because you see, Safina's decision is informed by initial contact, where both parents are contacted, but one is more receptive and, intending to pursue the matter. The other one just is probably in the middle. He has just he's answered the call as he's at work, or he's just leaving the shift, or going into a shift, and therefore trying to make sure there's no conversation that takes place. What informs your decision now to go and speak to the mother in the presence of the dad?
Again, it's down to the legislation, because there's what they call parental responsibility. And for somebody to have that parental responsibility, the name has got to be on the child's birth certificate. So in most cases, you find that the mom, obviously, you cannot doubt the mom's parentage. But until you ask the mom and the dad, you can never tell whether the dad is the father or they have got parental responsibility.
Oh dear!
So to take the safe route,
yes,
you go with the obvious. You cannot question the mom's paternity, and then the mom will tell you, "Okay, I'm the sole carer, but we've got joint responsibility with the dad."
But now, Jaden, as a man, you are a social worker, yes, but you're also a man. For you to have been the one that has taken that route straight away, don't you think that's the contribution you're contributing towards this very problem?
If you don't explain it, because once you have established that, you'll need to bring the man in and say, this is what I did this because the law requires that I speak to somebody who's got the parental responsibility. If they are not there, then who is the carer of that child? So there's a hierarchy to follow. But putting that aside, it's also common sense for most social workers and most professionals that the child spends a longer time with their mom and their dad. Now, this is common sense, and it's also an assumption, because we assume the dad will go out to work and the mom will remain with the child. So she will have more information about the child's behavior, about the child's performance, and all that thing. So that she's the main source of information. And when Safina says the mom is the hard one and goes to school and throws tantrums, it's just natural. Women are more emotional to solving problems, while the man or the men will take the more physical side to solve the same problem. So my mom, for example, would cry and talk us out into doing stupid things. But my mom would walk in, my dad would walk in with a cane and start caning, and he'll ask the questions later. So that one, I don't know how we can reverse that.
Okay, Jaden, hold on one second. I've seen Aisha's hand, and since we are interrogating this, instead of rushing through, we are having a conversation, and therefore, I'll try to bring in, as many people on this, so that at least we interrogate a point before we move further. Hajat Naima Kaira says, in response to what Hajat Sar, I think, raised in a message, who says, why would a social worker choose to speak to just the mother and not both parents? Which I think you have tackled there, Jaden. Hajat Naima says that's exactly what I was also going to say. Aisha Masimbi, assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the conversation.
Walaikum salam, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, loud and clear. Where do you come into the?
Actually with Jaden, we talked about the systems, favoring more of ladies, and where he said it really well, I think, in terms of analysis, what is happening to men. But Jaden, I think we are looking more at the men in diaspora. But this is happening widely, I think. Even back home where we come from, we can see that men are also getting more lazy. They are putting your hands away. They are even assuming that they have to be married instead, getting young, a big woman to marry them. So it's not only happening here, although here it is widely recognized as, in terms of when it comes to who has the power more and who have, if the system here recognizes more the ladies, probably that is the nature of it in terms of, I would assume because the queen mother were all ladies. So I'm assuming that could be kind of connected in one way or the other in this system here. But what would you say about our system back home, where I've seen young men actually wanting to be, to become ladies in the home, putting their hands, being lazy? What would you say about that? Because I think this is where they are becoming more. Is
Yes.
it to do that they are really? It shows a degree of laziness here because
They've thrown away their responsibility.
yes, because here we have benefits.
As they say in Luganda.
Exactly.
Yes.
Here the benefits are awarded mainly, to women, but in our countries where there are no benefits, no welfare system that functions, men are becoming really a bit lazy from my own perspective in terms of outside of these diaspora countries as well.
Aisha, let me put this to you. Do you think probably, there's something about character, and probably I'm happy for someone to disagree with me, but there's something that women fail to understand about men, just like men fail to understand a lot about women. But men, I'm trying to find the right word in English that would be appropriate to sort of to do this.
Abasajja baagala okubeeguya kyogezaako gamba. I think abasajja balina ego y'amaanyi.
No. So I'll tell you why I'm saying this.
Okay.
Man will want you, if you ask for something, they want to feel that you can provide it. Now, for a woman who is already beginning to work, and this applies not only in the West, but also in Uganda, you can see the women are already out in the markets. They are running shops in Chikubo. They are really big in business. Even in offices, they have sort of, developed and got promoted into work. Now, when a woman starts getting access to resources, their ability to kweguya suddenly diminishes. So they will ask for something, like once, and then if it doesn't happen straight away, they go and get it. Now, one thing about men that women fail to understand, the moment you show a man that you can do it, they will allow you to.
Okay, they become lazy.
They will allow you to do it. So if you're going to continue doing it, it just means and that's how the journey begins. You've shown me once you can do it, I allow you to do it. You do it twice, 3 times, 4 times. Then the man now feels like, why should I be bothered? And then that starts now a trajectory that becomes a problem that someone now will come across as being, inefficient, uncaring, simply because where they thought you would have wanted them, you showed that you could do without them. Jaden, I don't know if you have a different perspective to this. I already see fire in the chat room.
I think you are right there, Sheikh. If I may add on what you've just said, it is a true analysis. As a woman, what I see in this scenario, in this analysis you're putting across, is that we women, men tend to delay in certain ways. Where you feel that something you've for example, asked something, you've proposed, a man may delay in his thinking in terms of, they always procrastinate, they always put things forward. Whereas, for abakyala, oluusi ebintu ebimu tuba twagala, ebintu kino tukyogeddeko, kikolebwe, oba kino nkyagadde, kikolebwe. So that one makes us, why should I really continue to beg and ask when someone keeps on kusembezaayo, we shall do it. Why should I wait for that when I have the means? I think tetuyina kudda okulinda okwo oluusi omusajja putting off things, now putting off. I putting off today, this year, another year. Whereas sometimes they have the means, they take long to take that decision. So, and sometimes for abakyala, oyagala okola decision, not in a rushed way, but sometimes you wait 1 year, a second year, a third year. Somebody is not coming up with acting on the proposal or on the decision. So you say, Domani, let me do things. Let me do things.
Aisha, hold that thought, because it looks like Naima Kayira. Stay there, because I think we have opened a can of worms already, and we should be able to fry it and make sure we eat it. Yes, I disagree about the Kweguya.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
I think we ladies will kweguya when you've provided the basic. I don't think it's really fair. I think even it's abuse. If I have to kweguya for you to buy me a sack of rice to feed your children, to feed ourselves, I think it's not right for me to kweguya for the things that you really should provide. Honestly, why there are things you ask for like twice, thrice, and you feel it's starting to kind of affect your mental health, that there comes and I think there was a pastor who put it very well. I can't remember how. He's a very famous or popular pastor. He puts it to, you have to kind of look after your mental health in a way that if you work with a man who kind of doesn't deliver, you have to have the mindset not to expect If I ask
Mhm.
and get, alhamdulillah, bananga mpadde, namusabye sente nampa. Naye, like in your mind, to kind of protect your mental health or not putting your expectations high, you're like, I'm going to try. He may give me, he may not give me. So the Sheikh Kayira Owoyogedde mu men like to kweguya, we know that. But not the best.
Do you know that?
Extra, yes, we know.
So
but
Yes.
why should it be difficult then? It's not. Let's hope it's not the basics. It's moved now to
Yeah,
you
that's
want
why
a
you
dress.
had to
You
be
want a
very
dress every weekend. You have a wedding. You have a party, and
yeah,
probably
that's
by my postponing, it's because probably either we don't have I don't have the means at the moment, or probably there's something else that was high up there that we needed to sort out before we can go to this, and this could probably wait. But
we can
know that
have
you
those
can't wait.
conversations. We can have man and woman should have those conversations. Said mukyala bambi nkimanyi wansabye paundi 2 naye emipiira gy'emmotoka with the ones which I have, the car that I have, and butuufu neetaaga okukyusa emipiira. We understand. Naye kati if you use that story in 2022, you've used the same story 2023, honestly.
And you're using it in 2024.
No.
All right. So how do we? Because now I think the point at which we went into this element here was trying to see how we lost our homes. Because our conclusion tonight is I actually want to devote a lot more time now, because the troubles we have gone through, we are already there. We are in the deep, but it was important for us to lay the foundations as to how and why we found ourselves in that particular hole. But a lot more emphasis will go in trying to see how do we reclaim this particular situation. So Jaden, before I let you go, because I want to bring in more people now, I had interrupted because I didn't want us to lose focus on this particular point, which is how we found ourselves going down that route. And you had gone into the element. If you've just joined us into the show, very welcome. Jali, I saw you coming in. Welcome to the conversation. But the point then was, one of the reasons you get social workers getting involved, we started with a law that was established because of historical abuse. But then if the law comes in, social worker comes into the home, first impression, which again falls even into the school situation where Safina says and Jaden says, you get into a home, the person to contact becomes the mother in the presence of the father sometimes. And that again now goes to the where we are, which again twisted or seen in a different perspective. You see how it comes in there. I'm there, the person comes, has a conversation. The father is there with the remote changing channels because one, they have not been involved into the conversation. And for them to just come and say, I am here and I need to be part of this conversation, probably not a manly thing.
Yeah. I think I'll go back to what the sister said, that we are referring to the men in the diaspora, but it's the same thing is happening in Uganda and in other countries. That is right, but there is a difference between why it's happening here and why it's happening in Uganda, for example. Here, they have a safeguarding issue because you cannot leave your child outside and they're safe. But in Uganda or Kenya or wherever, those days or up to now, I believe children are safer than they are here from abuse. But the problem in Uganda is the economics. And there's been an imbalance of economics and production between men and women. So what has changed in Uganda and in Kenya and Tanzania, as far as I know, is that women have now been empowered with sources of income. There are NGOs that offer women means of production, whether it's capital, whether it's training, whether it's for facilities, other resources, to empower them to generate their own income. And once the women have generated their income, with the level of unemployment in African countries, the women suddenly find themselves more empowered because they have the financial power. And this is where the problem comes. Because using that money is now the direction of the person who earns it and not the person who leads the home. So the leadership in the home suddenly changes from the traditional leadership that we know of the man being the leader, whether he has money or not, to the person who buys you the pants because you don't have the money. And that triggers the ego of the man. Much as the man will go begging for money, at the same time, if there is a whisper anywhere in the neighborhood that that man is being supported by his wife, then the wife starts to be abused because the man wants to protect his ego. So it doesn't happen just in the West. It happens in the UK, but the reasons are different. Now, you said what was that word you said in Luganda in its translation?
The Kweguya.
The Kweguya.
Yes.
I don't know what exactly that means, but in the West here, for a man, actually, as I was walking from my bike at little town, and I saw an African man pushing a child on a tram or a pushchair, and like you do, you say, "All right, brah," and he nodded and stopped, and I thought he needs to have a chat. So I crossed the street and go and speak to him. And from what he was saying and from what I deduced is that I'm doing this because I have to, but I don't want to do this kind of thing. Pushing his own child in a wheelchair because of that pride African men have in themselves. That should be the role of the mother in their mind. He's doing it, but he doesn't feel well doing it. You know, it's like in Africa, if you see a man carrying a pot on his head, you begin to ask questions. So the same thing is here. If you see a man pushing a tram, another African man will ask the same questions. Where's the mother of the child? Why are you doing that? So men have been reduced from that level of leadership to changing nappies, to pushing the trams, to being the housekeeper. And this is not what they are used to. I'm not saying those roles are not important. They're important. They make the family stand. But it's that little ego in the man's head, which triggers them off and whatever. I hope that answers the lady's question about why.
To an extent, though, I see hands coming up. All right, Jaden, thank you very much. You've opened us into a conversation. Let's widen the scope of the conversation. Barakallahu fikum. Safina, back to you again, and then we come to Aisha. Let's now try to interrogate this, because I would like I said, to spend a lot more time trying to see how do we reclaim this without breaking the law, but making sure that at least we can reclaim our positions. And we are only very few men. It looks like Jaden, you and me are the only men on here now, if I'm not wrong, which again speaks volumes when it comes to conversations and how we can find solutions. But I think we should try to see when do we swallow our pride and be able to see the best that is in enhancing our own families. Safina, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Allow me to make about 3 or 4 comments. One about the issue we're just talking about.
Which one?
About our men losing their control or stuff like that.
Yes.
Jaden talks so much about the legal system and stuff, but me, I go back to the issue at hand. Men are just lazy. It's a common term in Uganda where people say, no nyamkazante kamusente, you know? You say someone who's strong, who could be a hardworking man, but he just makes himself go to the gym, make that body, make himself look good so that women can pick him up. That's a very common tendency. Then about what he said about a man's name not appearing on the birth certificate. that already shows you where the problems are starting from. Because
Which
we
one?
have
Which
men.
one? I missed that, Safina. Sorry, the second point.
The second point, there's a time he said that why a social worker will come straight and talk to the lady is because the parentage of the mom is clear on the certificate is there, but you might find that a birth certificate doesn't have father's name. And where does it come from? Because most men, in fact, they will say they love you and they're so sweet and nice, but the moment you tell them I'm pregnant, you can wonder where the love disappears to, because most of them were not ready for it. They were just having fun and stuff. So consequently, they detach themselves from the women. So this woman goes through the entire pregnancy on their own, struggling, asking for help, and he doesn't even come in to chip in. So by the time the woman gives birth on her own, she feels like maybe I shouldn't put the name on his name on the birth certificate. And we've seen this too. Sometimes women struggle through the initial years of bringing the kids up on their own, and the man doesn't show. But when the kid has grown up a little bit, then the man comes back. The kids are mine. Now I want to be involved. So we find that these things keep on happening. They've happened before. They are happening today. And we are, I don't know. So this has to come back to, in fact, there's a time they say there's a lot of talks to the girl child, a lot of talks to the women, but then there's not so much talk happening with the men. There's a time we had a discussion here where we said men never talk. They do not air out their issues. So consequently, it might be so hard for you guys to get to the men to make them wake up and take up their responsibility, because that's becoming a challenge. And I don't know what we're going to do about it. You just said it yourself. Most of these assumes we have.
The problem with that is that most men unfortunately think they know. And the moment you start from a point of I know, it just takes away every opportunity to learn.
In fact, this is why the hardest thing to do is to teach a man how to swim and drive. They come to the swimming pool and people diving in, they think it's just a matter of diving in. You know, they don't want to ask for help. So right. I don't know. So this is why we need to, maybe as we are bringing up boys, in fact, there's a time someone put up something, a meme of some kind, that the boy you're bringing up right now is going to be a future husband to someone. So maybe we need to be bringing up our children, the boy child, the way we want them to become the husband in future, because maybe that's how it should start. Then the other question you ask, what can we do, or how do we lose it? Because honestly speaking, parents have become slaves to their children. As I say, as a teacher, I've seen this in Uganda, as I've seen it here. There was a boy who was suspended for coming with a stick of marijuana to school. So he gets a 2-week suspension. Then he comes back to school with new Air Jordans. So you're like, really? The kid was sent home for misbehaving, and it's not the first time he's getting a suspension. And then as a parent, you're rewarding him with a new pair of expensive shoes. Because honestly speaking, you're telling this child, go to school and do another thing, then do another one. So the suspension is like a little break back home, and then you come back to school and you're goofy about. So we as parents, as you're asking the question, how do we take our power back? This thing, in fact, the ones who have had children already, it might be a done deal. We need to pray for our children and see what happens, and we take them through until they become adults. But the ones who are having children right now, from psychology, we know these kids have a blank slate. They see, and whatever they see is what they're putting on their brains. So we need to mind how we expose and what we expose our children to. If you're the kind of couple that bad mouths your neighbors, these kids are listening and they're hearing you. If you're the kind of parents who bad mouth the teachers, you know, when you come to school, home, you talk about this teacher who called you about the child and you're laughing about it, the kid is listening. If you're the kind of parents who talk about your relatives, your brother, your sisters in a very bad way, these kids are listening. Because many times we forget, our kids learn more. In fact, they hear more from what they see than what you tell them. You tell them, I beg your pardon?
No, I was just completing your sentence there, that they hear more. Well, they take more from what they've heard or seen than what you.
No, from what they see than from what they hear. Because sometimes you're telling them to behave well, but when you're in your own houses, you're really behaving in a nasty way. Husband and wife have no nice things to say to each other. They're abusing each other. The kids are watching you. You're telling them you need to pray, but you too never pray. So these kids are not going to grow up and pray. You're talking to them about dressing up decently, but you're always indecent. So if you're that gentleman who puts on damaged clothes, and then you want your children to dress up in a smart way, to them they think damage is the way to go because that's what you show them. So as parents, we want to regain our power. We need to start by changing ourselves. Be consistent. What are the regulations in your home? Many times I tell kids there's a difference between a home and a house. Some kids are coming from houses, not homes, because in a house, anything goes. In a home, there are regulations. So what kind of household do we have? Do we have some regulations?
Safina, I wanted to come back to your point number one, and I think we'll explore this last one in terms of how we regulate our homes. I wanted to come back to the issue that you raised about lazy men. Again, let me take you into the mind of a man. Can agree or disagree, but I'll tell you because one, I've been around these men, I've seen them. I do not really, feel proud of them, but they're existing and they're providing a service. Again, they are the result. This is not something that you'd have found in olden days. This is a new phenomenon. It's a sort of a Generation X now before Generation Z situation. And what happened is that the women got out of homes. Women started doing business. Women started going into offices and getting promotions and studying very hard. You come to Europe, well, let me start with Uganda and then I'll bring it here. And Uganda will actually be a sort of a microcosm or a nucleus of a representation of what happens across much of Africa. Woman comes, starts business, slowly, she starts doing her charcoal. Before you know it, business grows. She goes from this ndebe to sack, full sack of charcoal, then introduces matoke game yera, as an addition to the business. Before you know it, she's really, really thriving.
Batches.
So doing, she's working so hard. Another woman is in Chikubo. She's doing the business, looking for all the, the wholesale shop, introducing stuff. Her wife is away. Husband is working away. Wife is working away. Woman becomes very powerful with money. The detachment, because very hard-working wife, very hard-working husband, all working like in different sectors, means they are away from each other. In between comes the situation. And this is where these young muscle six-packs guys come. The woman has got money at her disposal. The money is unavailable because he's working away, he's in conferences and seminars, blah, blah. The educated woman will also be doing the conferences, traveling abroad and so on, getting access to somebody else. You will find that, for example, in my years in the media, I found out that actually many, many people were sort of falling in love or probably having short stints because at work you're spending a lot more time with a work colleague as opposed to the husband, to your spouse at home. So
sometimes they call them
very early in the
work
morning,
husband and work wife.
Exactly. So you are leaving home very early. You are coming late because there's traffic in the middle. Both ways. So you end up spending a lot more time in the media. It's even worse. Like relationships that husbands that can hold families down or women that can hold families down in the media is very small. Frustrations leads to smoking and then alcohol consumption. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that you end up spending a lot more time with this other person, and therefore relationships can't develop there. In the absence of those relationships, what is happening is also you have a lot of money at your disposal. The man is not around. The next thing is you get a young man now to excite you while you wait to go back home to your busy husband to whom now you can converse and talk about money. So the intimacy begins dying slowly, the position of these muscled boys, because these boys actually, for them to be able to be there, they are spending a lot more energy on how to look good, but also how to be strong. This is a person who will last hours, when this businessman who is thinking about an early morning meeting will just be going for a quick and just disappear. Now, these are realities that we have to face. And until we touch the elephant or scratch the leopard, something, as the president would say, we will not be able to address the real issues surrounding this. Now, this woman has found herself now in the hands of this young, handsome man, probably going to a sauna, or Uganda now it's very common. So it's saunas and massage in the evening. They to the saunas. From there, you never know. There's kachai, katogo that goes on there, wearing the way they are wearing. The next thing is you're beginning to build up that part. The man, on the other hand, is probably also facing a situation where he has to deal with a similar situation. But now women have become very powerful, very empowered, money at their disposal. With that, now I leave Uganda where I've just painted the picture, I bring it to here. Same sort of scenario is sort of happening, but here now it's more the working environment. Woman is working. The next thing is, the pressure gets to the two of them. Man moves out. Woman continues with her life and children. She's getting a bit of government support. And then the next thing is she works so hard. She gets promoted. She gets the money. But now you have the money and you have no man. Now the other muscled men come in and they're just there to provide the big service and then go. Now, this is the reality. You'll find many women who have been successful with business or, work and careers suddenly now have to start longing to find the person that now they can share the amount that they have worked so hard for. The lazy man now is coming here because he's providing his service. Narongo has a name that she uses for such people. I won't use it on air, but it's like also donor. They are there just to donate that, and their business is that. To expect this person now to be anything else when the circumstances of their engagement was on that becomes a bit difficult. Now, this is the scenario that we have pushed ourselves into, and therefore trying to find any solution must be able to address the core issues that lean onto that. So men traditionally are not lazy, but then the circumstances have created a market for laziness because there are women with money and in need of a bit of care. These guys will bring the care and eat the money. Go ahead, Sophie. That's my ranting. Yes.
Now let's imagine this young man, matured man is your child. Because as a parent, you'd wish your child to settle down with a given woman and start giving you bazukuru. But if they are doing that kind of service, it means there's no chance for them to settle down. Or the other kinds who settle down with the young ladies and then they never give them time because they are already servicing the other, because the other powerful women with their money might have a stronger power over them than this other young girl they've married. So you see, we are going to be in a vicious cycle that will never end. So at what point are we going to get a solution to this? Because this is why I'm saying that as parents, let's groom our children to be the kind of men we want them to be in future. Otherwise, it's not going to end.
Yeah, but as parents, as we are trying to groom, we have to be the example of what we want them to be. For us to imagine that now you're going to train a person to become the husband or to a wife or the wife to a husband, when in your own life, like you brought the point yourself, you said children will see so much and follow so much what they see us doing, not so much what we say. So that bringing up, that grooming must be able to be through our own examples, and probably it starts with us. Probably it will actually answer the last question, which was, is it possible for someone now to redraw, to sort of re-switch the clock, change the clock and go back? A wife now acts and lives like a wife, and a husband lives like a husband, not just man and woman, but husband and wife. These come with very serious responsibilities. Thank you very much, Safina. Let me bring in Aisha again. It looks like we've just monopolized the conversation, but remember, we are still together, so you can just come in at any point as long as you raise your hand. Aisha, go ahead, and then we'll try to spread the conversation out more.
Okay. Very interesting points that Safina has raised in terms of our consistency with parenting. But I just want to go back. I just want to mention, because you're asking how we are going to draw back, to get back to how we're going to start this all over again, isn't it, Sheikh?
Yes.
I think, let's ask ourselves, where did men get this kind of, we are the leader, they are the leader? Which scriptures mention about men being leaders? we know that it has been written down that men are the powers, and it's been written down in the religious scriptures. Sheikh, you may agree with me that these things have been written down, but that's where we have to start from. This is where we have to get our religious leaders, sheikhs,
Sorry,
fathers,
I
priests.
didn't get you well. Please just clarify before.
I mean, in my clarification, I'm saying that this, we have to look back at where did the leadership of men begin?
Mhm.
Where did we get that connotation that men are the head of the family? So we have these things were written before, and these have been generational, from generation in Bibles, in the Quran, in Taurat, in whatever it has been somewhere mentioned that men are the leaders or probably the head of the family. So that's where we have to begin from, because what the preachers or the priests or the sheikhs have been doing in generation were to glorify men, as opposed to telling men to work in partnership with their partners. Because Sheikh, you know very well, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did actually help his wives in terms of things, in terms of business, in terms of home, in terms of why is it that these are not preached to our men, to the men
Aisha,
that they have to help?
let me even put your heart to rest. One of the most
Okay.
quoted verses, which is sometimes even quoted out of context by some sheikhs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa, that men are the providers, men are the leaders over women. And they're leading though, and they stop there. They stop there without going into the detail. The Quran never leaves out something. Allah says, Bima faddala Allahu ba'duhum ala ba'd. The reason men take this leadership role in a home environment is of what God gave them in terms of, more, maybe they are more energetic and therefore they can do some stuff that women would find, much more difficult. But also wabima and faku, and what they have given. Providing and what they have provided. So any man who doesn't provide loses the essence of الرجال قوامون على النساء, because you have failed to the fundamental basis that makes you the man is your ability to provide, but also over those other things that God has prevailed men over women in terms of, there might be resilience to, hardship and so on, but women actually now are coming out to be even more resilient than men. The men, once you lose that aspect, because in a difficult situation, because women are emotional, if a situation happens, the woman would react with the emotional aspect. Men are physical, and their physical element means they should be able to contain this kind of emotion, provides a consolation, provides hope to a situation that is proving to be difficult. So the man should be saying, this has happened, but alhamdulillah, we shall overcome it. Providing the comforting voice instead of, being now also being the person to put the other person down. So from a religious perspective, at least I wanted to lay that out and then allow you to go on. Because then, since you say we should go back to the scriptures and see where did it all start? Men were the hunters, women were the gatherers. They would remain home and do the cooking, and then the men would go out and do the hunting, but they would bring the meat for them to be the men. The men who would kill, a big animal and therefore be able to bring big meat, they were considered tough. The men who would kill lions or leopards, suddenly became heroes and they went into folklore. Now, all of that was happening because they were sitting and handling a position that they were supposed to have. So,
thank you very much, Sheikh. Thank you so much. And the scriptures also say that men should not actually support their wives when they've given birth, like, feeding the baby. Wouldn't it be, common sense that if a woman gives birth and they have a lot to do, they are the ones to clean, they are the ones to cook, they are the ones to bath, isn't it common sense that a man should actually come in and support their wives, to work in partnership? I know a man would say, I'm working, but isn't it really something that you could use like out of love. You kind of support your wife, expect that you will, while she's doing this, you have to do this at some point. Because Jaden gave a good example when she found somebody willing a child, and they felt that, okay, maybe this is not my responsibility, but that's their children, that's
Yes.
their child. Doesn't it give, will the scriptures take away that ownership, that you have the child, then you have to provide? Does the provision only entail only finance? I thought it would entail things like provide the love, provide the care, be there for your wife when they are struggling. And I think if the scriptures, or if the sheikhs or the reverends or wherever the pastors would preach these things, work in partnership, if we have that love and amicable partnership working, I think things should kind of shift back. That's what I have to say, Sheikh. If things
Thank
could
you very
shift
much,
back in
Aisha. I
that
think,
way, yeah.
yes, you lay a very important point there. And Hasfa, let me bring you in here because you raised something that I think would fit well into what Aisha's just said, which is the issue of gender roles, probably, sort of being different, and they vary from society to society, even from times to times, from home to home as well. You might find that in one home it's easy. Like living abroad now, you find we don't have any servants. A husband in Uganda will be at a better advantage because his help to his wife might come in the form of making sure the wife has a maid or a house help that is going to provide such help when the wife needs it. There are particular things that will be personal, and therefore these are not roles that you can delegate. But on other things, you might find that it is easier to find like a house help who might come in, handy to sort of help the wife. Abroad, because it is difficult, it's not like you cannot get a house help, but they'll come at a very big cost that you might not be able to afford. Then that's where now it comes in to sort of bring you people to sort of, come together and be able to help one another, to help each other. It's even the kindness, when Allah talks about mawaddatan wa rahma, Allah has created love, but also mercy upon each other. These mercies you feel for one another, you kind of see the kind of stresses that we go through and try to work through them. Thank you very much, Aisha. Hajat Naima, I wanted to bring you in because I think there is a whole element of social work that has been discussed. Jaden says in a caveat that he's no social worker, he's a psychotherapist, but with social work experience. But I wanted to see, because now part of the biggest problem, actually, whenever someone thinks about a social worker, your heart really, sort of goes down. You have wrecked homes. People feel like to look at a social worker, it's like, A'udhu billahi min social worker, God forbid. But that's the kind of feeling with some people. It's sort of a big burden thrown onto social workers. What role? What are you seeing in the homes as you go in as a social worker? Things that raise concern over things that probably we can find our ways out of, because that's the only way we are going to try to find a way as to the way forward. We've thrown ourselves into this pit. What have you witnessed in social work that brings out the idea that intervention has to come in?
Was that for me?
Yes, that was for you, because we're trying to interrogate this bit, because once we see, social work comes in, under what circumstances, what sort of pictures, what sort of images are you seeing? What are these telltale signs that have really dipped us and led us into these situations? Are there particular situations that, you have found really unbelievable, that we have dropped so low and therefore need to sort of pick ourselves up?
When I did my training in social work, honestly, I was like very intrigued. Why would someone really, or why would the authority really take someone's child away? Like, what rights? I went in with that kind of, not anger, but like lots of questions. But by the time I did my first year, you just get angry, to be honest, with parents. Like, you look at a child and you wonder and say, how did this child survive on a mattress. So, for example, if they are bedwetting, you literally lift the mattress and the wee is just dripping. And you wonder and say, how can a child honestly be left in a situation like this? There are children who feed in bins. You may not think this is possible.
Is that in Europe or Uganda you're talking about?
Here. They feed from because these are families that are dysfunctional, families that have issues around drugs, domestic violence, crime. So obviously, most of them are on benefits, so most of the money goes in feeding their lifestyle. So you find a child hasn't eaten. These are children in schools you find stealing people's food. So when you obviously school knows that their behavior from children, you can notice and think, and you know something's not right at home. So social workers basically are there to do their job, and that job is to safeguard. Some people get it wrong. I won't lie, because I remember there was a case where they said the mother had, I think the mother had just come from Africa. I think it was a Ugandan family, and obviously because at that time in history, we used to pick stones from our rice because of you'd buy kaiso, you buy any super rice and it has stones. So this mom or health visitor or health professional went and found mom picking things from. She'd put rice in the senior and was picking, as she asked, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm picking stones out. I'm trying to find." So she put that down as mental health problem. But I think they've given people training around understanding diversity, cultures, so people are more kind of knowledgeable. But my experience has been that apart from families that are struggling with their own issues with mental health, drugs, and all that, what's very common, even with families that come in, for example, Indian family or Asian families, African families, actually, we kind of ignore or we kind of forget what our roles are as parents, and we leave our children to fend for themselves. So you start teaching a child, or the eldest child starts caring for the little ones because you have to work, you have to go, maybe you have a shop to run. So you start training these children at an early stage. By the time you then realize that, oh, there are issues in my home, and you want to retain back or regain that authority, it's already too late. These are children who won't listen to you because you are really absent. You'd come in, so there are parents who come in and go. So mom comes in, oh, the children are fed. You're not there. So this is where we have to balance. So I know our parents, some of the parents I'm working with, they have to give them therapy around understanding who they are. They have to actually start teaching them who they are. So then they start gaining that kind of authority. They gain there's some kind of defined role that actually I'm the parent now, you're the child. Sometimes it's too late, but you have to kind of work through that. So yes, in terms of your...
In the cases then, I think you've laid it out pretty well. Let's look at the men, because now what is becoming clearer now is, as part of the process of picking up oneself, it has to start with an acknowledgement of what has gone wrong. So in kind of your line of work, how much of a participation of men do you see in the lives of their families, in the lives of their children, but also in trying to find solutions for homes?
My experience, and I think most people have kind of mentioned, previous speakers have mentioned about men doing some kind of back off, let the mom kind of deal with that. So we have scenarios like they've said the legislation, you can't just share information, more especially with male, because you don't know whether this is a partner, this is the dad of that parent. Actually, what's interesting, there are fathers who are really biological fathers, but are not on the birth certificate or are not married. You cannot share. And you know that's the birth father. You cannot share any information with that father until he goes to court and get parental rights. That's how bad it is. So if men want to be part of families' decision making and all that, they have to stand up and say, no, I'm going to be on that birth certificate. I'm going to be in my children's life. That way you give the woman some kind of guidance to say, that's my king. That's my, you see. But what men do, they kind of leave it. A difficult situation, mom will deal with it. And this poor woman is overwhelmed. She's overwhelmed.
Forgive my ignorance, Sajat Naima. I'm just thinking about, like, because I thought it is automatic that on the birth certificate, both parents must be on. How is it possible that the fathers are not on birth certificates? I've had it mentioned severally tonight, and it has bothered me. I'd never thought about it until now. How is it possible that you can have only one parent on the birth certificate and not the other?
So sometimes with our situation, people coming from outside Europe or UK, and we are looking at gaining citizenship or status in the country, you don't want to associate, maybe you think that women are more favored in applications where you're just a single mother, then you don't, at the time of birth, you may not include the male on the birth certificates on those grounds. Then there is also the fact that men do not go to register at birth, like to register the child's birth. So if the woman is not that kind of really faithful, and they ask, do you both have parental rights? How is it only you? And they would say, some women would say, no, just put my name down. So it's just you being involved in that whole process. That make sure that you are on that birth certificate, because the law won't share any information with you, even if you are the biological parent, unless you're not.
So you are dealing with a social case, a home case, and you've come in. Jaden, I've seen your hand up. I'll come in. I just didn't want to lose this train of thought. I wanted to finish with Hajat Naima and then come back. Probably might have something to add in there. So what are the men doing? I mean, you've said we've seen there's been suggestion that some men just sort of take a back seat, but just paint a picture for us, probably in a situation where you just saw men sort of being unbothered or unperturbed by what is going on. Probably like three different scenarios where someone can probably get a clearer picture of this uselessness that we have allowed ourselves to drop down to.
I don't know. I think there is that perception from men that, women really do get a lot of money. So if you are getting money from the government, then why should I even provide? So this is where we're going back to the issue around not being the main breadwinner because you think your wife is earning more. So, and there's that thing about, you're getting the child benefit, the child tax, that's children money. Why then should I buy them clothes? And that's the money for it. Does that make sense? Yet, if you had kind of a good working relationship with your wife, sometimes that money you can actually use it for projects. you could agree and say, no, you continue doing this, but the money that we gain from these people, probably we need to put it aside. It could be used for tuition for the children, because in the future, if you obviously don't want to take out a loan or things like that. But then men kind of use that and then become, like you said, really useless. The other thing is as well, the women not wanting, like I said, the system where women think, if I'm a single mom, I'll get more. So again, as well, making men kind of less involved in children's lives. Then there is, I think, the other thing where us women, I think we are also to blame. Or I don't know if we are to blame or it's the situation, because growing up, if I remember, if you had issues within your home, or the time you were getting married or coming to live as man and wife, you were told that if you ever have any issues, you should always consult so and so, your uncle, your auntie. But then men are like, women are like, no, I'll just call the police up to deal with this. So you find that men then are kind of very timid, doesn't know where he stands. Can I even talk to these children? You see what, can I even discipline? Because in your own home, you've been made like not as much important as, but I've seen fathers, I've seen, and we tend to do this a lot. That's the truth. Where you kind of forget the man because you have to, as long as you have to establish where that dad has parental rights. That's part of your job. And if that dad has parental, you have to invite that dad to meetings, you have to update, but we don't do that. So we kind of just deal with the mother, or you have to do this is what the plan is, but they're trying to change that culture. And I think managers would ask, does dad have PR? That's what they say, parental rights. Yes. Have you told the dad this? Have you involved the dad? So we tend to kind of sort of segregate men in that way. But I have seen men who have complained and come and said, look, these are my children. Why did I get involved? Why didn't anyone tell me? And honestly, they have every right to be angry. So it's also the system kind of, but I think men have to stand, and I think men have to stand up and stop fearing the law. Oh, the law listens to the woman. No, as long as you're on that piece of paper, the law listens to you as well.
Thank you very much, Naima, for that contribution. I'm sure now it opens up a lot of other areas now. And as we try actually to start moving towards concluding, which is how do we get ourselves out of this deep hole? And I think, Naima, I think you've gone quite deep in terms of the position in the homes and what you find and where we have actually lost our role. Most men don't want trouble. That's the fundamental thing. Men don't want things that disturb them. And thinking that, for example, getting involved and, a lot of meetings having to be called this time and that time, that starts affecting someone's thought. And therefore, because they just want to get shortcuts into situations, they want nothing to do with it. That sometimes now makes some men miss the opportunity to be involved in the lives of their children, or even actually in the lives of their own homes. And there are many cases now where men have actually even now increasingly become victims of domestic violence from their wives. And that is yet to be taken a lot more seriously. You find that lacking in some instances. There are many men who actually probably would be on suicide watch at this moment in time. And surprisingly, I've found that to be a growing problem within our Ugandan community. Our sisters, our wives, please be careful. You would never get over the guilt, apologies. We would never get over the guilt of someone taking their own lives as a result of your actions. It is one thing that you can never, ever overcome. Many, many men are suffering out there. The few that manage to get to brave it, to be able to speak publicly when you open conversations. I love opening these conversations and just, put it into free fall. And I've been surprised by the kind of information. They start slowly sort of throwing little bits, but the more you start interrogating, you just see how many men are sitting on needles throughout their lives. Many men are dying younger, prematurely. Astaghfirullah, nobody dies except on the appointed time. But there are instances where you find that someone's contribution, the journey towards the death, has been contributed to by the circumstances under which they are living. And if as a woman, if as a wife, you become the contributing factor to this, think very well, especially if you're looking to meet your Lord in the hereafter. Jaden, I come to you while I read this quick message here in the chat room. RM had said, if not legally married, the male should be present in person for registration to appear on the birth certificate. That helps to inform me a little bit more. I wasn't aware of that. Aisha Masimbi, all right, that was a thank you. I think she was leaving. As far if you put them on, especially if you are single, then even at passport renewal, both signatures are needed. If a scenario arises of both parents not getting along, they can deny one parent from traveling. From traveling outside the country. It's sad. But they sue them for child support regardless of being on the birth certificate. Aisha says sometimes men are invited to meetings, but they don't attend and think that it is women's duties. Women always make the time. Yes, Jaden, go ahead, please.
Thanks for giving me the time. I just wanted to answer two short things. One about the birth certificate, and then also to paint a picture of what we social workers see. Now, there's two kinds of birth certificates. There's the one they give you in the maternity ward. It's a small card, and they ask the mom's name. Obviously, she's the one going through the pains, and then they'll ask the mom, whose name do you want us to add on? And if the mom says no to any name, just put my name, then you, the dad, are ruled out. Because in my case, I was there in the labor suit, and Nalong was asked that question.
Yeah. How did you feel?
At the time, there was excitement, obviously, and I didn't know about this name issue on the birth certificate until I became a social worker. It was completely, I was happy for one name to go on, but in hindsight, I think we made the right decision to put both names on. But somebody mentioned about the traveling. One time, Nalong was traveling with the twins because she chose not to carry my name, which she regrets. She was questioned at the airport about the parentage of the children, because are you the mother? Yes, but how come they've got a different name? So it creates issues at social services and also at the airport. But the one that brought me back is I want to paint a picture of what we see when we go into a home after we've received a referral from the members of the public or from the school and so on. Now, in one of my cases, I walk into a house. I'm actually closing my eyes so that I can remember it well. Walk into the house, into the courtyard, and the front yard has got dog poo and pieces of scrap metal and food left outside the bin. Go into the house and it's a carpet, soft woolen carpet, and there's a small child crawling about. And the mother tells me, watch, don't walk there, you'll step on dog poo. And this child is crawling across the room to go and pick her dummy on the other side of the room. And this is the same place the mother has told me, don't walk there because you'll step on dog poo. I was invited to a chair and I sat down, and I didn't realize the chair was wet until I went back to the car where my colleague was waiting, and they asked me if I had weed in my pants because my pants was smelling urine.
Allah. Yes.
Because we have to do welfare checks, I opened the fridge and there's nothing other than cans of beer. I go into the bedroom and the bunk bed, the top one is sagging. The springs have come off and the blankets are in tatters. As I'm walking about, I feel slight pinches in parts of my body, which I later discovered to be fleas.
From the dog.
Then, yes, fleas from the dog, and I think they had a cat as well. The curtain, I could tell, was hurriedly opened to bring light to the room, but my imagination is that the room was always dark. And as I walk away, I couldn't go back to the office. I had to throw away the clothes that I used for that particular mission. Now, that was one incident. Second incident with the much older children, I'm called in as a duty worker, 8 o'clock, the child is not returned home. You can't leave the property, wait. 9 o'clock, the girl returns wearing very short dresses and smelling of smoke. And the greeting to the mother was the F off, why do you keep calling me all the time? I know what I'm doing. I'm 16. You cannot control me. And F off and F off and F off through the time that I was there. And it took me 1 hour to calm the situation because it was like a war zone. The mother is effing and blinding from one side, the child is effing and blinding from the other side, and slamming the door, the window, the door to make their noise.
There's no father in the home at that point.
There's no father in the home.
Right.
And there's other younger children in the house listening to all this. They're watching TV, but all this is happening in the background in real time. Now, tell me what human being will not take action after those two incidents?
Yeah. Point well laid, Jaded. It's actually very powerful. It's difficult not to move one's imagination now and take it to that point. Oh dear. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Let's get now to the concluding bit where we are trying to see how do we reclaim, because now we've laid the picture, we've seen where we've gone so wrong. Part of the solutions have already been mentioned, but I'd like us now to use the next at least 10 minutes to just go into solutions. I would like you to come in with solutions. How do we pick ourselves up? And a few men have joined late, but well, coming in. Baker Saba Saja says, if you feel not wanted or needed anywhere, sometimes in the diaspora, it is safer to step aside and fight from outside. So life sometimes is made hard by the spouses we choose. Choose carefully. Yes, that's very, very important. Choose wisely. Wobo watomera awo chikachituremu. Naya, I can't imagine not being in my children's lives. Nyinza okutabuka. That's really, really critical. There are some men that whose pride, once it has been hurt, there's no come back. They will just go and it's just a free fall. There's no coming back because they've been hurt and they don't even know how to come back. Hajat Sarah, coming to you on way forward. How do we reclaim our homes? How do we take back our roles, as husbands, as wives, as children, as parents to our children? Salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I first of all apologize. I've been in and out of the meeting and I missed so much. The only thing that kept me on is like, I'll get back to the entire recording and then I won't be missing out.
Which opportunity I should use now to plug that for those who joined late into the conversation, remember you can always catch up with the show. Just go to YouTube, type Umma Connected, and there just look for Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira. Alternatively, go to facebook.com/75W Radio, as in 75W Radio, one word, and then you'll find Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira. Hajat Sarah, fire away, please.
Yeah, for me, when the little I've had, I think all this comes about because our families are broken up. So we have to look for the reasons why our families are so disconnected, so that we get back together. And then, when we work as a team, mothers and fathers, I think we can raise very well behaved children. And we can take examples from our homes from Uganda. Yes, the situation here is different, but we can still use that model to kind of do the same thing here. The difference between Uganda and here is because both mothers and fathers are extremely working hard, and the time of spending with their children is quite limited. But also that as we've seen, has gotten us into many challenges whereby the relationships have been strained because of that. Mom feels that she's not being supported, as in physically, my dad being involved in domestic chores and all that, and also financially. And men are also like, the women are getting money from the government, the tax returns tax returns, and also income support that fathers are not getting. I think we all need to sit down on the table and really value these relationships we have, and also understand that we have children we need to bring up very well. Because for me, in my case, when I look back, because I had a husband who supported us very well, we never really had such financial issues, and we gave him all the respect, me and the children. And the respect for the children to give mom and dad respect, it all starts from us women. We are the middle people in between. If mom feels mistreated, she will tell the children, and that will not go well with the dad, and dad will also lose respect in return. And if dad is mistreated, he will just sometimes walk away and leave the mom with the children. He will not be bothered. So moms especially have to play a big role, and the dads have to help and make sure that they all work together and have, a good family, and try and forget all those differences. Yes, the money is important, but also the bringing of the children is more important. Thank you so much, Shikeke.
Alfikum, thank you very much. Way forward, how do we recover our situation? To the men out there, because now men, you've become mean, you become lazy. Baker, you came in pretty late into the conversation, but I would like to just get you on the concluding bit, which is how do we help ourselves out of this situation? How do we recover or reclaim our positions as men, as husbands, as fathers in homes?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi Sheikh
Wa
Kayira.
alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I think one thing is, by the way, wonderful topic, and it's good to see that this topic is being discussed. To me personally, I think one thing we need to do as men is just educate ourselves. And that I don't mean educate ourselves regards to degrees or whatever, but just understand the system, understand what's happening around us, understand how things work in the diaspora where we are, because sometimes you find that sometimes it was split up over really little things, just because of misunderstandings, just sometimes we need to cut our ego, cut the level of our ego, and understand that where we are, things are different. To remove fitina jetutambuliramu, fitina njerere. So once we understand that, then we need to educate ourselves that, okay, if I'm to be a father in the diaspora, what's required of me? What's required of me as a father? Chichen no kola. I need to be there for my children. My children need time, so I need to speak with them. I need to engage with them. So the way I was brought up, let's say in Uganda, it's not going to be the same way as it is in the diaspora. A child here is going to ask you why. your wife is going to ask you why, you know. So there are going to be questions. So just to understand, okay, this is the situation we're in. You know, once you understand the situation you're in, then you educate yourselves about the system, how the system works. The police will generally when you very go, even if the name, the house, you the one that pays the bills, you pay every single bill in that house, you're going to step out first. Automatically, that's what happens. Whether it's nyumba iyo mchalo yakajjamu wiki emu, they're going to tell you genda ofune gy'okola ki gy'obeera. That's a safeguarding issue. Just kugamba naye just to understand the system. The system egenda tubuula, there is a reason as to why that system is the way it is.
Becca, men have been accused of being mean, and that is affecting relationships. That as we try to mend whatever has been broken, it starts with the ability to have smiley wallets. Becca, how do we deal with this?
I think that one I'll blame the women, really, you know, because once
you blame the women.
Yes,
But it's
because
the men who are said to be mean.
Because from day one you should know that this man is going to either give me or not. Kubanga waba yali akwana nga takuwaayo kintu, takuwa ebintu biraba tebijja, talina kyaku, takuleeterayo kamuli, takuleeterayo kalabu.
Abasinga babireeta wano mu kukwaniriza lumala okunyweza bwati ne bikyuka, you start seeing things looking a different way. Here in courtship, they are all so nice. You see a person tambara chusa, then reality sets in once you've entered. And then you realize, you use the word kutomera, you realize, hey, you picked wrong.
I know. I think one of the things we need to do is just check in with each other. Just accept that we need to check in with each other because we're not all perfect. We all, some people have dreams, you know, especially ladies. A man is going to come on a white horse and proposing, and then, you know, we live happily ever after. But things don't work out that way, unfortunately. So what we need to do is just to check in with each other because we're not all perfect. We make mistakes. So if a man is mean, be ready to sit down and have a conversation. But I think ladies are very powerful.
Can meanness be treated, Becca?
Yes, it can be treated. It can be treated. Kayira abakyala abo balina amaanyi. Abakyala balina amaanyi asobola okugyamu akakadde nga totegedde na ttegeero. Ogenda okukeera enkya nga tolina amafuta. Osobola okukeera enkya n'otuuka ku petrol station nga sente tolina ziteekamu mafuta, tolina sente za kuteeka mu mafuta. Ogenda okutuuka hajjati yazitutte ng'ate tosobola kgenda zimuggyako nga tolina zimuggyako mu magezi. So definitely it can be treated. It's all about how we treat each other, you know. Omukyala bw'oba ng'ofumbye bulungi akamere omwami n'omugabira emmere ye ng'akomyewo n'omuyisa bulungi n'oyogera naye bulungi, I don't think oyo aba simanyi nakumanya. Naye taata we alina okuba nga yali mukodo. Bw'oba ng'omuyisa bulungi.
Ogwegwiya baakuvaako kati oli bw'aba teyeegwiyizza kiyinza okuba ekizibu okujjamu obulwadde.
Problem ye fitina gye nkugambye.
All right, Becca, thank you very much. Safina, concluding way forward, how do we get ourselves out of this difficult dilemma that this deep hole that we have allowed ourselves to dive into?
In my view, I feel people need to choose peace and love instead of war. And how can we do this? Sometimes ignore some things instead of just jumping in on everything. Because many people have split up, are having bad blood between them because tebasirikako. Dino datika kuyomba. Yet sometimes if you ignore some things, let them pass. And then life moves on. If something's not life-threatening, let it go. Okay? So if we can build a relationship between the husband and wife, and then sometimes the kids can pick on it as well, and then they also fall in line. But it starts with the adults in the house. If the adults are fighting, the kids are not going to be able to come out the way we want them to come out. So that's what I'm saying, that sometimes everybody plays a fool sometimes. So play a fool and let life move on. That's my conclusion. Thank you.
Barakallahu fikum. Beautiful one. Actually, very short and sweet. Usama, lots of noise about men, you know, failing. How do we reclaim our positions as fathers, as husbands, as good husbands, not just husbands?
Okay, mbadde nsaba skipping. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alaikum salam. Ogenda kudda oba otidde kunnyonnyola?
Nziruka njagagera mu jama.
Okay.
Nzikutuwa no tusala mu 9 minutes. So,
Okay, that's fine.
nayenga ekya meanness about men ndowooza nti ennaku zino our income disparity y'amaanyi. Olumu omukyala bakusinza sente. Their incomes are higher than ours. Kati ate gwe atayina
okugaba tekuliimu gundi okugaba tekubaamu tabu ya disparity. Oyinza n'okuba ng'olina kitono naye ng'ogaba waliwo abalina ebingi nga tebabita.
Ekyo kituufu naye oba toyina ate ekizibu okugaba oba obalina katono nga tekakumala nakumala ate odde mukagaba.
Era okateekayo kasoba nti munnaye yeeweeza omumbago bazikuba ekyakuwasisa awo n'okuba nti olina okukatuulamu.
Kati owaayo kati ate n'osigala mu mabanja oba ate n'omala n'omwewolako oba ate n'onga ati
okumwewolako ye kennyini osobola n'okumwewolako n'oddamu n'ozimuwa. Ozimuwe osobole okugyawo fitina. Ali Kenya, I don't know whether it's your line that is bleeding through. Ali Kenya, are you there? Tazama nyama. Safina, is that your line? It's been bleeding through. I was just wondering where the Swahili the tazama nyama suddenly came in. Beka kachaka tarekeka as we try to conclude now, I think.
Briefly, okusonyiwagana, we have to be forgiven. We have to be ready to forgive each other. Remember, you have to be ready to forgive each other, and yeah.
Barakallahu fikum. And also, I think, well, allowing oneself to learn, because a lot of times, Ali Kenya, we are on men. And you have come in at least at the very last minute. Amakaga, how do we reclaim our positions, our roles in our families? Ali, yeah, I was trying to get to you, but your microphone was not yet on. But as you come in, Ali, when you're ready, we're just trying to look for solutions now. How do we do? Well, one, I think fundamentally is to go back. Falling in love is absolutely important. If you are not careful with the choice of the person that you are most likely going to spend the rest of your life with, you are doomed to failure and to suffering. We cannot know what is in people's hearts. And therefore, dua is very important. To survey to rombe dua. Rombere omuntu goina e dua. Murombere Allah mujemu obukodo. You know, if it means whatever it takes, if it is a cleansing ritual that has to be done, okujjamu omuntu obukodo n'obukusikusi, you pray for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove the meanness, the miserliness from this person so that they can become giving. The moment you actually have the giving, wallahi, you can never go wrong. The Prophet ﷺ says, Tahadu tahabu, gift each other and you love each other. This starts from the family, but also extends now to the wider perspective where gifts become an element, a component of daily life. They become critical aspects that they can actually join up people. Wayombere mchara omufunyo obutakanya, okwali wadde okweyunga as you are returning home, come back with something that might actually quell that situation. A gift would speak more words than anything that can be said. Let's look forward to that. Let us avoid Okwangwira to run to authorities unless it is a life-threatening situation. Let's try to resolve these issues in-house as much as we can. Let us only resort to the authorities once we have failed to actually find solutions within ourselves. Very critical. Let us respect each other, because with respect, you will appreciate one another. You tend to see where someone is coming from. Let us be merciful and kind to each other. It may be that today I don't have. I have the promise that tomorrow, inshallah, I will have. Let that tomorrow also be now visible. That if you could not afford today, while it is understandable, when you afford tomorrow, let it be visible. Because I think the postponement now, the idea of Pegui and whatever and postponement, if you say today and then tomorrow, same story, it becomes the routine. It loses meaning in the context of what needs to be done. But above everything, I think prayer is a guidance to this, and the willingness to be able to learn, to want to do the best that we can. Because sometimes the best might not be enough, but at least the best is always a continuous best. What is best today might become better allowing you to do best tomorrow, working towards improving ourselves and seeing how we can better our situations, being willing to get to our children and therefore be able to open these doors of communication. For the children, very important to know that parents are your parents, that you can never have peace in life until you have resolved your issues with your parents. The Prophet ﷺ says, I've been so religious today, I've gone down the line of religion today. The Prophet ﷺ says, all actions shall await until the day of judgment. So in other words, the things that we do here, the rewards for the things that we do here on earth will wait until the day of judgment, except two things. One of those two things is a crime against a parent. Something that is done to harm a parent. You can never have peace until that is resolved. You have to plead, you have to ask the parent for mercy, for their forgiveness. Actually, when you see that you're struggling in life, for those who still have a chance to have their parents alive, whenever you see that things are not happening, you're struggling, a phone call to your parent and asking them to give you dua, to forgive you for any shortcomings, you might be shocked and surprised as to what comes out of that. So for the children especially, to know, to think that you have grown, you are 16 and therefore you can throw the FFs around is absurd. For the children, it is very, very important. Listen to your parents, pray for your parents, seek their understanding, their kindness and their mercy, and have kindness and mercy in return towards them. It's been a very good night, another very beautiful night. I think this is one topic that actually might have a lot more to explore next time. Hajat Naima, let me come to you again as the last word, and Hajat Mariam Texas, the two of you will give us the last words in terms of how do we make this work. Please go ahead. Hajat Naima, are you there? She disappeared. Hajat Naima? I'll go to Hajat Mariam Texas. Hajat Mariam Texas, assalamu alaikum there. Oh, Hajat Naima, you're here. Yes, as Hajat Mariam.
Sorry, I was.
Yes.
What was the thing?
It's the way forward. It's the way forward. How do we now improve? How do we reclaim our place?
We just go to the what was the original plan for men, really. Do your job.
Original plan?
Which was taking care of the family, being there. And I think this is something I wanted to share with our parents. Please, do not think that women, I think there's a way women are seen as what's the magic, is it called the magic wand? Like if there was an issue at home, at school, and you kind of put her in the front. I think you have to also show, like they said, the children see this every time. If I need shoes, I have to go ask your mom. I need this, ask your mom. No, you have to also show that you are part of that decision process. If you don't, you lose your place in the home, and that's the truth. So it's about going to the kind of the basic, everyone like stay in your own lane. I understand economic situations or difficulties have come into play where people have to share, but also don't overdo it, because obviously she's earning more, so she has to do everything. No, if you feel that you cannot afford, do the least, that the smallest, at least the smallest that you can do. Show effort. She does recognize, and obviously we do really appreciate. But if you think that, oh, you have money, so what difference am I making? That's where you make the biggest mistake. So for me, it's about parents, first of all, cutting down on work. Let's balance. We work, but once in a while, take leave. We are the ones taking all the overtime. Then people are going on holidays. They book their holidays a year. Overtime go katwala. When do you have time with your family? So the also children also get their own ways. By the time you realize, oh, your children are already gone. It's not easy to parent. Now the children have also had issues. I'm not going to lie. But obviously, one thing I have in my experience as a social work, when you put a joint kind of front, both of you, one, it gives the child confidence that these parents really care. And then two, you're able to solve whatever problems that come. Kataso abaza nyamwembi. Now if one of oh no, that your dad will deal with you. No, you have to kind of be a joint front in that. So I think it's about going back to basics, taking up our role, responsibilities. Hopefully, we'll be able to solve the issue around imbalances within our families. And please look after your wives. Do go extra miles as well. If you want actually the best in your marriage, you have to go extra mile. Don't do just the basic. If today you bought her one pair of shoes, next year buy her 5.
Nakorogo. Thank you very much. Ayati Mariam texts us, I was looking for you there. Safina says, if you met someone who was mean from the beginning and you still went on with him, that means you accepted him the way he is. Then live with it. Don't fuss so much about it because you knew it from the very beginning. Yeah, maybe if there's no treatment for meanness, but like we've had, there might be some treatment that can be given to meanness. Of course, well, inshallah, next week we will be together with another very interesting topic. Haji Kassim Narumos, who just joined us as we were wrapping up. It's been a very fantastic night. Thanks to Naima, Mariam, Hawa, Muhammad, Hasfar, Haji Usama, Jaden, Jalia, NK in the background in the Cambodia as usual. iPhone RM, who has not spoken at all. Safina, as usual, Hajat Sara Semakura, Beka Sawa Sajja, and 75W Radio, as well as the Umma Connected team. Thank you very much. Just in case you missed out anything, you can always catch up with the program. Just go onto YouTube, as usual. Just type in Umma Connected, that is UMMAH Connected. And there you'll be able to search for Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira. And you can catch up with any of the topics that you'd have missed. Or just go to Facebook and just look for 75W Radio as one word, and you'll be able to find Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira. Or you may actually just go for the shortcut. Just type in Come Let's Talk with Kassim Kayira, and that will take you straight into the YouTube channel. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you. Hope next week, inshallah, to have another very interesting topic. Remember, if you have a topic that you think we should discuss, please do suggest. My number is always available. Just drop a line and then probably we can start working on it earlier. Find guests, probably, or professionals that will come in. But interestingly, you are the best professionals because it is your experiences that have informed and helped this program to become what it has become. Have a very good night. Hope to see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.